You want it to be
1/12th.
Hello, welcome.
1/16th.
1 and 1/20th. 1 and 1. Well, we're live. Hello, welcome back to the show. My countdown was excessively long. Look, I'm not going to lie to you guys this week. It has been a pretty dead week for news. But there's been some interesting shit going on. And then one of the interesting things that went on last week that got a reaction this week is related to our guest this week, Ginger Prime. Welcome to the show. I mean, if you don't know who Ginger is, he is the guy who had the reaction to the crazy reaction to Final Fantasy 14. It was great to see. But yeah, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on. So what have you been up to? What have you been playing? How's your week been?
Oh man, thanks, dude. My week's been phenomenal, man. Like, I can't tell you just how like the outpouring of love for my reaction has been. It's been so overwhelmingly positive, and it's been so great that this has finally happened. To set the scene is that this has been a campaign that I've been on since Final Fantasy was announced for the PS3, exclusively for the PS3, and I've been on this campaign to bring it to Xbox, drawing various different illustrations, doing various different signing campaigns, talking about it on my various different YouTube channels. And honestly, I was like, you know, we've heard rumors, every little bit of news that could possibly be Xbox looked like it was on its way. And then all of a sudden it went absolutely radio silent. And I'm talking about like Phil Spencer saying, we want it on Xbox and we'll do whatever it takes to get it on Xbox. And Yoshi P says, who's the producer of Final Fantasy 14, says, we want it on Xbox and we're working with Phil to make it happen. And then it's like absolutely nothing, complete radio silence. And then Final Fantasy 16 is a PS5 exclusive. And it's like, and then like, same thing with Forspoken. And then same thing, like it was all of these things. And it's like, what the hell happened over at Microsoft and Square Enix? Because it felt like they just kept moving further and further away. So I was saying that I was like, I hear that it could happen. And the thing is, though, I don't think if it does not happen by 7.0, can this relationship be saved? What is this plan here? And so I literally had a moment before the reaction, before they brought Phil Spencer up on stage, where I was like, man, how crazy would it be if they brought Phil Spencer on stage? And I just thought it. I didn't say it out loud. That's my one regret, is to be able to sit here and be like, 1 minute later, here's Phil Spencer, everybody. And a lot of people, it was interesting to see people's take, because I literally got text message from people who were at the event. I got so many like people who know my content and what I put out into the internet. They all came. Like they left wherever they were.
Can I just throw a pause in there? Let me just put a pause.
They were like, oh, it's like people who knew, they knew this was going to be massive. And for me, it was, holy shit, this is happening. And then I just became overwhelmed, because it was like, I've been fighting for this, and not just fighting for it, but you have to understand, like I was telling you guys in the lobby, is that I get a lot of hate. And so the hate that I saw, people who were like, you shouldn't hate on him. I was like, that's my day. Like I get my channels get reported, all of these things, because Final Fantasy is a PlayStation brand. And it's like, no, it's an everybody brand. For me, it was an SNES brand, and then it was a Sony brand, and now it's an everything brand. And so it was something that I would always have to like fight for. And so I've always said that the hardest thing to be as a gamer is a Final Fantasy fan and an Xbox fan. And this announcement also goes to make me think that those days are far behind me. Well, that's the hope.
We certainly hope they are. And I want to talk more about this. But before we do, I'll just jump to our other guest, Blue Number. Welcome back. It's fantastic to have you back. Thank you.
Is it?
Thank you.
Is it Riskit?
It is. It definitely is. Contrary to what Jedi and Umbra had said in the background, it's fantastic to have you back. And what have you been up to? What have you been playing? What's your?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me back again. And it's wonderful to be here with Ginger. This is going to be a really great conversation. It's been tremendous watching, what's been happening on Twitter. And I have been playing. I actually played the Payday 3 closed beta yesterday, and I've played a lot of Remnant 2 with one of these guys on the podcast, Pete, and yep. he lets he keeps care of the dog for me while I'm not playing with him because the dog loves me more, even though he's attached to Pete, and that's okay. And I've also been playing a absolute crap ton of Fallout 76
Nice.
in parties with different people, and just having bonkers amount of time. I was in tears last night crying so much because I was playing with a couple people and just dumb
didn't want
things
to.
happen, and it's hilarious. So,
They held you against your will. I get it, and they made you cry.
no, Fallout 76 is so good. I know some people are a little worried about the hate, but I don't care. You can hate on me all you want. If you haven't played it in a long time, you can't talk about it. So anyway, it's really fun, and so is Remnant 2, even if I have to play with Pete. So.
Yeah, I mean that is probably
Understandable.
the negative. Yeah,
Understandable.
it's a big negative. Yeah, we
I
understand.
Umbra, I
We
haven't
understand
had to
more
play
than
with you
anyone.
yet,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Yeah,
Pause.
I had to carry Pete, so I get it. Trust me. You know.
Speaking of carrying people, Umbra, welcome back to the show. You had your fantastic show just yesterday. How did that go? What have you been playing? What have you been up to? How's your week been?
Oh man, the show went well, man. You know, we now have entered into the YouTube partnership, so I have that done. But it's the first tier, so I'm about maybe 250 maybe watch hours away from 4,000. So I'm about to hit that in a few, maybe an episode or two.
Oh, there's tiers.
And,
Is there tiers?
yeah, because you get the basic one, the first one where you have to have 500 hours of watch time and I think 500 subscribers or something like that. You get that first early tier that YouTube put in.
Okay.
And now, and they have the second tier, which is 1,000 and 4,000 watch hours. So,
baby.
yeah. So I'm about to hit that one now. Oh, what should I say? Yeah, thank you. And so no, I'm feeling good. I actually forgot about it. And our brother Silent Cypher, who's in the chat now, he was the first actual person to send in the super chat. Now I was actually taken back. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. You know, I enabled it, but then didn't know. I forgot all about it. Yes. Acknowledge me. Yes.
Congratulations on your first super chat. Like that is a awesome milestone, and it's so great that you have somebody willing to come in and actually support. And it boggles my mind to this day. Like I support, but it's like when people do that, dude, it does, that feeling doesn't go away. It doesn't go away.
Good. Yeah. And these are brothers and such I've podcasted with, I've communicated with on Twitter. So it feels good to know that you got respect and love like that for the community. That means a lot to me. So much love to everybody who came through and supported and donated. So you didn't have to do that, and we definitely appreciate it.
I don't know. I don't come because I don't want to encourage the singing really. So I'm trying to sort of make a stand. Get my point of view across. I don't think it's not working.
It's like taxes. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's just good. It's just best to accept it. Holly gets it. I think some people need to accept this. I
feel a song coming on, and I'm hovering on the mute button. I'm hovering.
I was very close. I decided against it, but other than that, man, I've been kind of a bit in a gaming lull. I haven't really been playing much this week, but I did play a bit of Halo earlier with Vinny and KJ, so we had a good time with that. Got a few victories, a few losses, but other than that, man, not much. And I haven't been active in parties this week, but I'm going to try to be on tonight and tomorrow for sure. And I bought Atlas Fallen, so I'm excited to play that next week when it releases on the 10th. So other than that,
I didn't want to say this in the green room, but Umbra said that in the green room. But what he doesn't know is that I monitor PlayStation, and actually, what's been going on is that Umbra's been spending a lot of time on PlayStation. So
that's not true.
We've been a little bit concerned. This is actually an intervention podcast. So what's going on, man? No.
No, I haven't touched this PlayStation except once, which was to troll Bushido. That was it, really, literally. Yeah. Since last year.
Absolutely. Dauntless, there's a level of, just before I introduce Pete, Dauntless, there's a level of being a dick that I'll allow, and I definitely won't allow that stuff, mate. So just be respectful, okay? Otherwise, I'm probably going to block you for good. We don't want to do that. JediKnightPete, welcome back. How's your week been? What have you been up to? I hear that you have been carried throughout the community in Remnant 2.
I love Remnant too. And yes, it is true that Umbra literally beat the boss all by himself. So I have to give him that one. That was a really good boss fight. And it also is true that my dog betrayed me and loves Holly and Boba more than myself. But
Smart dog.
in saying all that, I love the game. I love playing with friends. The more I can play this game, the happier I am. I'm up to the final boss now, and I just don't want to beat the game, so I'm basically going through every world again. And when you do that, there's so much more to discover. Ginger Prime, don't let anyone drag you down. I mean, if you are that excited over anything, brother, good for you, man. It was awesome to see that passion and love for gaming, and it just oozed through. So kudos to you, brother. And Holly, great to have you back. I mean,
That's not what you
yeah,
said.
I mean,
That is not what he said when I told him.
I'm looking forward to this. Let's get into it.
Absolutely. Look, I do want to jump back to Ginge. That's the thing that we do in Australia. We shorten names or lengthen them, so depending on how many letters you have. So jumping back.
That's a ginge, huh?
Australia is one of the places that I really want to visit, just so that I can be like, all right, let me just start faking that accent.
Yeah, Umbra tries. It doesn't come off.
Yeah, I'm pretty good, I think. I've never visited them, but I mock their accent anyway. So I think I'm pretty good at it.
Look, I do want to jump back in. So listen, it is a huge. So even if you didn't have the background of wanting this game to come, I think since 2013, to a platform that you prefer, to have that sort of just dropped as a surprise. I mean, it's huge for Xbox.
Dude, this is huge for Xbox. This is huge for also the community. So one thing I always want to make sure is very clear is that I view myself as what I call gamer first. I'm not an Xbox diehard. I'm not a PlayStation diehard. I want players to have the games they want to play wherever the hell they like. Now, my preference from a console perspective is the Xbox. I have 3 Xboxes. I've got 1 PS5. I've got I had a couple of Switches. Kids dropped them off in the tub, and so we've lost a few Switches. It is what it is. And then I got a the handheld I like the most right now is the Logitech G Cloud, because I can stream games from my computer or GeForce Now or X Cloud. And I had to pay for an app. This pisses me off. I had to pay for an app just so I could stream PS5 games to it. So Sony in and of itself, for me, is that they're a company that I wish would stop being a dick and stop. If you ever play poker with anybody and they get a chip lead, Sony is that. They've got the chip lead, and they're using it to the best of the business strategy. I don't blame them for that, but it still sucks. It's come on. I love that Xbox, especially with Microsoft, gives me
that's
so
one
much
of the
choice.
That's one of the best analogies that I've ever heard. And look, the guys in the chat, if they know me, so they know that I make a lot of jokes, I kid around. But at the end of the day, I got both consoles, and I want both to succeed. It's one of the reasons that I don't want to see Xbox make any more large acquisitions. I don't want them to have an insurmountable lead, and I saw PlayStation's lead as an insurmountable lead. And that is a great analogy. Is that they've got the chip lead, and now they're just being a bully, and that's what you do when you get the chip lead. You start to bully everyone at the table with your bluffs and your bullshit.
That's how you play the game. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And the business is the same.
And then you see one of the best things about competition and why I want a strong Microsoft and a strong Sony and a strong Nintendo is that if they're fighting each other, not necessarily for exclusives, I can get behind the timed exclusive, and I lose a lot of. I get more hate from PlayStation players when I say, well, what if we did bring Halo to PlayStation? It's a multiplayer game. You're why not? Or at least the multiplayer side of it. There's more players in the queue. There's more players that you can go up against. I get a lot of pushback from Sony because they the players no, this is why I bought the console. And it's it's going into a direction where at some point you won't need to. You'll be able to be a part of your Sony service or your Xbox service, and then you just get to stream the games from everywhere. And that's one of the things when we bring up Starfield, it sucks because the console warriors are going to turn any flaw in Starfield into a bigger deal than it needs to be. And then anybody who's just oh, this is a great point for Xbox, Starfield's perfect, I'm not going to, acknowledge that maybe there's a bug here that, that's critical that they need to get fixed. And so you end up having people just yelling at each other and not actually discussing the beautiful art that is video games. And that's where I'm like, gosh darn it, I'm not looking forward to Starfield's Twitter launch. I'm very excited for the game, but I'm not very much looking forward to the, let's just call it what it is, the bullshit of content creators. Like, we all know what I'm talking about right now. When I said that, everybody kind of felt it in their gut. When we know what we're talking about, you probably even thought of a certain creator or two, and it's just, for me, it is so frustrating because I see the pattern that is emerging. And let me blow your minds a little bit. If anybody, if you're ever curious as to what is truly happening, because I see people ask the question, right? We saw a Dreamcast guy talking about why is nobody talking about this game right now, and all of these things, right? You got to remember that content creation, especially YouTubers, and even to a degree the Twitch streamers who steal all the YouTubers' content, you have the relationship that they're actually playing a game. Here's the thing I would really like to hear your thoughts on. It's better and safer and smarter business-wise, game-wise, if you're thinking of it as a game, to be negative. Because if you're wrong, you can always come out and say you're wrong, and that's then the positive video that goes along with the majority of the popular opinion. So most often than not, it is bigger and riskier as a content creator to actually come out in a positive way, because if the game doesn't deliver, then you look like an idiot. But if the game is bad and you sit here and think that it could be bad, so you say that it could be bad, and it turns out you were wrong, you're a convert. You're now a part of the team. And so I just see that within a lot of the content creation space. It's like, yeah, the more that you actually hear about it, the YouTubers will take it, and it's going to become negative no matter what. And all the game has to do is deliver a good game. That's all the developers have to do. But in terms of content creation, the attention-driven machine is all driven off of the fact that it's all about getting that attention, and you get it. You can get it 2 to 3 times as much as being negative at the start than you can be if you were like, yeah, I think this game's going to be pretty cool. And that's what drives me absolutely up the wall. Yeah, I think, but it is what it is. What do you guys think about that?
We saw that with Colt Eastwood, good friend of the channel. I don't know if you know Colt. Good friend of the channel. Good friend of all the guys. Not personally. You guys don't hang out on weekends. I get it. But we went to, me and Holly were at FanFest with Colt, and we did talk a lot about the whole Redfield. Now, he was extremely Redfall. He was extremely positive about that. And sort of took a hit, and he did take a couple of hits recently from a friend of yours, Reforged Gaming. I do want to get back to that as well, because I definitely I'd like to discuss where you think he will go with Starfield and where he's going at the moment, because at the moment he's in that sort of category that you're talking about. You're talking about he's not being super negative, but he's being negative about it and asking the questions, and a lot of people are doing that.
This is going to be the worst. It's like, let me ask this in a concerning way. And the thing is that that's where then the audience is. So you got to have to remember, like, I consider, and that's where the trends are. And when you're trying to make it as a full timer, that's why, like, I put it in one video, and I should try to make it a thing. # part-time content creators, meaning like you do content creation, but it isn't your only source of revenue. It isn't your only income, because you got to play the game. You got to play the game, especially if you got kids. So I don't blame anybody for playing in the game. Like, but when people ask me, like, are you gonna, like, hey man, you got, like, you could go and you could be full time. It's like, great. I'm not. I'll go continue to make, like, content, but I'm gonna go work, and I'm gonna go, like, do my comedy career, and I'm gonna go do these other things, because it's a lot. I just feel like at least I'm way more relatable to gamers, because it's like, oh yeah, I didn't play this for 60 hours in 3 days, and then I bitch about, like, there's no content. Like, that's not relatable to anybody out there, except for like 3 content creators who also did the same thing, and they're like, yeah, turns out this $60 game only had 120 hours of content. Bad, crappy game.
Or like 500 when with Dying Light, but Holly, we can. Yeah. I'm going to sort of jump to you on that. So we didn't get a chance to talk to you about Final Fantasy XIV, and I know you're a fan of RPGs. So what were your thoughts on the announcement? We saw the PlayStation community sort of go a little bit nuts, calling Square Enix traitors, attacking the developers, and then downplaying the game, calling it a 2013 game. Yeah, you get an old game, all that sort of stuff. So. Did you get involved in that, Holly? That blue number. She's there. There she is.
Well, um, the I'm sort of a backseat watcher on this kind of thing, and I personally I love RPGs, but I am not a big Japanese. Just pretty much, I just don't get into Japanese games as much, and I know it's a huge audience. The Western stuff just speaks to me a little bit more, but this whole controversy is just asinine to me because at the end of the day, Square Enix is not owned by Sony, right? They are a third-party developer, and while they have a lot of these deals with Sony, in no way do they have any obligation to stay with Sony. And I'm very happy for everyone, that gets this. Ginger, I'm very happy for you that, this is something that, is important to you and obviously extremely important to you, right? Because you've been following this for such a long time and begging for it. And it, I know Xbox has been, dragged through the mud a long time, but when you think about where Xbox is today, at this exact moment, this is not something that's happened in the last 2 years, right? This is something that Phil has been really building for years and years and years now, right? And so he's had a lot of momentum behind the scenes, but it hasn't really come to fruition or started to come to fruition until we're here today, right? Yeah. And I think that what's happened with Square is a testament because Sony, they had their hooks in them really hard and they didn't need Xbox in any way, shape, or form, right? It's some extra money here and there. Outriders did okay on, it helped them out a little bit, right, with Game Pass, but it was optional, right? And I think Phil has sort of righted the ship enough and kind of put it in the path of Square Enix to say, hey, we're not optional anymore, right? Moving forward, your path is going to be impeded if you don't work with us. And they've recognized that smartly to their own business acumen, right? So everybody should be happy about this because what it shows is, A, those Sony rumors about buying Square Enix, they're not on the table, right? There's no way this would have happened if there was any sort of imminent deal coming through. And then
Sony but it's very hard. My dad's actually he's been a CFO and he's into the finance, all that stuff. So he knows what it is. So I actually teamed up with him and worked with him and we went through the numbers together because I was like, I just want to understand it. He's like, can Sony buy Square? And it's like, he's like, yeah, but I wouldn't. It's like it over leverages you.
You don't need to
agree based off of like what you're doing. It's like they've already got the relationship. Why go and throw that capital and risk all, he didn't get it. He didn't see it. He's like, yeah, Microsoft could walk in there today.
Why buy the cow when you get the milk for free? Absolutely.
Yeah, pretty much. If their business model with Square hadn't worked in the past, we wouldn't be where we are today, right? It's been mutually beneficial for both of them to stay how they have been. Now Xbox might put a little bit of a monkey wrench in that now, right? That they've got this relationship that's kind of been brokered and the door is open for more conversations and more things to occur. But again, right, this is all stuff that's been brewing and working behind the scenes for years. You don't do that you don't turn that around, right, in 6 months or less, or ABK doesn't magically change their mind, right? It's been a lot of stuff building and they're putting up roadblocks for people and they're putting up roadblocks for people to work with Sony and not with them. And that's what everybody should be excited out of this, even if you're not a Final Fantasy person. Then this should, you should see that side of it more than anything. It's a bigger win than any of us might see.
Yeah, this feels like a real big win beyond the one game that I've been advocating for, because I see chat kind of saying that maybe this wouldn't have happened if Final Fantasy 16 was successful. I'm going to push back on that. I mean, it sold 4 million units. I think I would love to have sold 4 million. Now, would it have sold, 8 million? Probably. Especially if it came to PC, easily 10. And I hope that Square Enix is a company that gets away from these silly rollouts of their story-driven games. The analogy and the problem that they deliver to all of us right now is this. It's like saying, hey, this is a movie that you're a fan of. Let's say it's the Endgame for Avengers, but we're gonna release Endgame for Avengers in this theater in Waco, Texas. So get to Waco, Texas, y'all. That's how you're gonna watch this movie. And then over the course of the next year, we're gonna roll it out over the course to where anybody can see it. And you're like, wait, why? Like, I don't want to have this story ruined. And so it creates this panic, which is what they want to go buy PS5s. That's why I don't know what that check was, but I hope that it was a lot, because that kind of bullshit should not be celebrated. And so many people celebrated it. And it's like, no, like, you're asking people who are fans of your game to now sit back and be like, all right, I have to absolutely run away when anybody starts talking about the story. And one of the things that's real critical for the Final Fantasy community is story. Like, that's one of the things that people really try to cherish and protect. And so it's created a problem that is still ongoing right now, because not everybody has access to play the game. But I push back that it's not a success, and I push back that based off its sales that brought forward this deal, that deal's been in the works this entire time. However, then the question, I would start to wonder, like, what kind of impact the FTC and the ABK thing had in getting the final signature. I don't know, like, we were obviously we'll never be privy to some of these things unless there's another lawsuit case that we're all going to listen into and learn so much about, like, kind of the all the T's and the I's. But
as far as it relates, Prime, to this Prime, as far as it relates, when I say Prime, I start thinking of Optimus, man. I'm going to tell you the truth, but I
like it.
One thing I've thought on more after seeing, Square Enix fiscal year 2024 quarter one earnings is that now I'm wondering if, and I do agree with you, and I'm wondering too if any of that played a part in this getting done, right? Where Square is seeing the money and like, okay, Microsoft is clearly all in on gaming. So it would be foolish of us not to, also use them to meet our ends meet, right? Have our ends meet, rather. So I think that does play a part in it in some manner.
Sorry.
But also I'll add this too. So we see their quarter one earnings here, and their revenue, I'm just going to say, was $601.2 million plus 14.4% year over year. Operating income 21.7%. Negative 78.5% year over year. So that's almost 80%, really, 80%. And for those that don't know, the operating income, that's when they have to pay everybody what they owe, people, the employees, all that, et cetera, et cetera.
That's also spoken. So
while they
back in that quarter, like, that game did not perform clearly, and that was a big chunk of that hit right there.
Absolutely.
And that didn't come to Xbox. So
that's where I was going with this. So part of the thing is they celebrated Final Fantasy 16 doing relatively well, right? I think it sold like 2 million copies, right? They said, or something like that.
It's up 4 million. They did
4 million now.
Like in the first couple of 48 hours, and then now it's projected to be
4 million in sales right there, which is not bad. But imagine how much more you could have had, or at least if you could have worked out a deal. For one, it shouldn't have been delayed to put on PC. That's one.
You launch it on PC and Xbox, it's a 10 million.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And you look at other titles in that same vein of AAA and how they have been successful doing it. Look at Hogwarts Legacy. Look how well that did. And I think they missed the mark here. And Square is not. I think they missed the mark often. So I think that right there also opened their eyes more than anything else. More than anything with Microsoft and FTC and the CMA, I think this was the biggest wake-up call for them.
Well,
like, oh, yeah.
I think it helps. I think it absolutely helps bringing them onto Xbox. We talked about this, and Pete, I'll jump to you in 2 seconds. But I think it helps putting these games on Xbox. But what's really going to help is, when you look at Forspoken, so one, it wasn't a cross-gen game, and that's profitable for as much as we don't like it as next-gen owners, it's something that's profitable for developers and publishers. But also on top of that, it helps, and this is obviously throwing shade at Forspoken, but let's be honest, as bad as Redfall was a bad game, and I think it was, in my opinion, sorry chat, I know some of you will get pissed off about that, Forspoken was also a terrible game. And I think that Square Enix needs to start building, with the Final Fantasy community, they already have this, but outside of Final Fantasy, they don't really have much trust with the gaming community because they have been so hit or miss. And that's something obviously it's going to help coming to Xbox, but I think that fixes maybe a small part of their problem, but not their overarching issue. I don't think that the Xbox issue is, but this is a step in the right direction, most definitely. Sorry, Pete. I know you were trying to jump in there. I'll go to you, man.
I was just going to say, on the broader issue of Square Enix, and I'm kind of like you, Holly. I don't really get into these Japanese RPGs. They're just not my cup of tea. But I do love that they are coming to Xbox. I mean, we've been asking for more Japanese content for a while now. And when you see reactions like that you had, Ginger, and when I talk to my friends that love JRPGs, I mean, Umbra, I know you enjoy them. Bushido loves them. Shirley loves them. Steph loves them. So, I think the Xbox needs that. But on the broader issue, I love the sounds of their new CEO, Takashi Kiryu. He sounds like a Phil Spencer. He sounds like a true gamer. And some of the messaging that we got from their prior CEO was just strange. When he was saying the whole Western Division wasn't making any money and constantly just saying really stupid stuff.
Well, like you mean the NFT debacle where he was like, everyone was like, we hate NFTs. He's like, but we're gonna do them anyway.
More NFTs. Oh, I hear you say more NFTs. It's perfect.
So what Kiryu-san said, and this is a quote from him, he said, I was watching the trailer for Final Fantasy. While watching that trailer, I felt like a kid again. Like a young boy in winter in 1987 who loved RPGs, who loved Dragon Quest, which came out a year before and was amazing. I had to get my hands on the big new things. So as a reward for helping my parents pick oranges and after begging them for an early Christmas present, an early Christmas gift, my father brought me my first Final Fantasy. And he goes on to say, I believe that games offer infinite possibilities. They have the potential to alter the course of our lives. As the new CEO of Square Enix, I will continue to cherish those childhood memories that instilled in me a gamer's spirit. I will strive to deliver to all of you, all of our fans across the world, that entertainment that promises new and unforgettable experiences. That, I think, in just those two paragraphs suggests to me that Square has picked the right man. They're going in the right direction, and I have faith in this guy from the little I know of him.
Well, I have faith in him as well with that, but I think more than anything, I think the bottom line is going to push that agenda one way or another. And seeing what they had here, they talked about Final Fantasy 16 being successful. Well, they said that before as well about what was it? What was that game that they brought to Outriders? They said that about Outriders. Then all of a sudden, it was a situation with them in the Western Division. They didn't get paid, apparently. Square did, though. Then you had the situation with Octopath Traveler, which I loved, put 250 plus hours into it. And what do we get? No Octopath Traveler 2 on Xbox. Why?
No. Weird.
Who the hell knows? So Square is all over the place when it comes to decision making, and it's just piss poor. So I think now that we're seeing this in their
oh no, they're gonna kick the door in again. Yeah. You better get those bars out before they kick
customary police sirens and such as I'm on, of course. It has to happen. Thank you, Chicago. Yes, thank you, Chicago. But as it always comes down to Square, we were talking about it yesterday on the podcast, and Mac Bound was telling me, he said Square, they paid $711 million. It turned out to be 714, by the way. I looked into it, and that they paid to and I think the thought was that they put that all toward Final Fantasy, but that wasn't the case. That is their whole entire operating cost. Like they put toward R&D for new gaming, things of that nature. The problem is that now you see this, what they're saying that Final Fantasy 16 is a success to them, but it could have been much more successful had they put it on all platforms. And I think now with this new gentleman, the new CEO stepping in, like you pointed out, Pete, I think now they're seeing that trying to stay to this allegiance to Sony, it felt good at before, but the landscape has changed, and continuously doing that is only going to hurt their pockets more at the end of the day. And so I think seeing this drop to nearly 80% and year over year, I think now we're going to start seeing a bit more parity personally.
Yeah, it means a lot. I think as an overarching this one game, like you said, Ginger, like you're saying, Infinite, and we did say last week that this is a step for the company in the right direction. I don't think it's like problem solved, definitely not, but it does definitely have a lot of overarching overtones of positivity going forward for Square Enix. And there's a lot more that they can do in a partnership with PlayStation, Xbox, and bringing their stuff to PC than they can just cutting one of those out. And they are a third-party developer, and they need to sort of start acting like a third-party developer instead of acting like they're a second party being acquired, because that's what I think. That's sort of the way that I've been looking at them. And they have been really dyslexic in their decision making. No offense to anyone who is dyslexic, but you'll understand that reference. But look, we do need to move to the next topic. Legendary Jobs in the chat there. I'm just kidding, mate. Like, I know it winds you up whenever I talk smack about Final Fantasy 14, so that's why I do it. But before we do, please hit the like button. For you guys that have supported us, don't forget to do that for a long time. We appreciate you all. And for those of you who are new here, please hit the subscribe button. We go live 8 p.m. EST every Friday. Look, I sort of just dropped a bit of a topic in as not much happened this week. It was a bit of a slow week, so there's a few things that we wanted to sort of cover off, but there wasn't anything huge. And one of them is a lot of people, and Ginge, you touched on it earlier in the show, talking about Starfield's marketing. And this is something that we talked about. We were on a podcast just before the Gamers Initiative podcast, and we were talking about this, and I haven't really had my finger on the pulse with Twitter this week. I've been pretty busy at work, but I did not realize that this had caused such an uproar. And there's sort of two things. There's the lack of marketing, and this is sort of an Xbox MO, and someone pointed out that they've done a lot of digital marketing, that they've done the Starfield Direct, but that's not the marketing that I mean, this is just me as a personal, and I haven't seen the figures behind it to support it, but me personally, I would like to see more physical marketing. I'm talking, on the side of buses, on bus stops. PlayStation does it fantastically. Xbox does their digital marketing, but where they're really falling down is out there in the world, bringing eyes to their games. And for Starfield, it's just not there. And I really did think it would be the game that brought it back. And the other thing that I obviously want to talk about, and we'll jump back to this, and Ginger, I'll definitely go to you and get your thoughts on the marketing, but is just the fact that Starfield isn't at Gamescom. Now, I can see a technical reason for this, and it's just a reason that makes sense. They're at the moment, they're squashing bugs, and they're working hard on the game. Now, when you shift a team, if you take anyone outside of that team, be it someone who's not overly critical to the team, you're still taking away resources from that studio. I mean, obviously they have a lot of resources, and I have heard it said, and I think Ginger, you said on one of your videos that they could bring over a bit of a demo, but doing a vertical slice, a demo, is going to take time to block off those sections, so you can't head off into this planet or you can't go into this section, and that still takes time. So no matter how you cut it, there's definitely a technical reason for them not being at Gamescom, and to me it makes sense. You're a week out from the game's release. What is the point of having a demo? Those people who go to Gamescom, they're very likely to already know about your game. I lost you
for a bit, brother.
And they're very likely to already.
Just a second.
They're very likely to already be playing a game. Yeah, the guys in the chat will be able to hear me. So apologies. Yeah, we're on different audio channels. But look, Ginger, I'll go to you and just your thoughts on, like, do you think that Xbox needs to push their physical marketing? And why aren't they at Gamescom? Is it a bad thing, or does it make sense to you?
So I'm of two minds. I'm clearly of two minds about this, right? At this moment, as long as they don't delay, then there really isn't an issue. So it either shows extreme confidence in what they're going to show. And honestly, at the end of the day, the best way that gamers should review games is with hands-on time. Not every gamer has that opportunity, but Game Pass as a connection to Starfield removes that risk. It removes that need essentially to rely on somebody's opinion online.
Just caveat there. I'm just going to throw a quick caveat and say removing risk is always bad. I should always be there, but continue. Sorry, my bad.
Well, meaning like that as a player, you can sit here because like a lot of people, because I wouldn't say pre-order games, right? Like I'm like, if you want to put risk and you want to put the money down and you want to be excited, don't come back later and be like, they tricked me. It's like, no, you bought into marketing and PR, and that's one of the things that will be applied to everybody. But when it comes down to it, though, Game Pass removes the risk of spending the $70, on a game, and then essentially finding that it wasn't your kind of game. You got, caught up in the hype. So it shows that they either are very confident in what they have, and that when people go to play it, the word of mouth and all of that, is going to spread. I do think that we'll see marketing pick up, here a couple weeks once Baldurs Gate 3 has kind of had its big moment, because you don't want to necessarily draw all these comparisons. And you will if all of a sudden people are talking about Baldur's Gate and Starfield. But if you go online, everybody's talking about Starfield. Like this has been something that I felt has been very consistent since the address. Other side of it, my other mind. So I'm a software engineer as a trade. I've worked with a couple people at Gearbox. We've done, we dabbled in making some games we haven't released, and so like I've seen a lot of that. I live and breathe it, on a day-to-day basis for my job. And when it comes down to it, yeah, they could be crunching. Now, crunch is such an interesting term that I see gamers react to in a lot of different ways. People look at crunch and say, if the game is good, you'll never hear about crunch. If the game is good, you'll never hear about the hours and the work because everybody's happy. The gamers are happy, and it's not a story that gets clicks. It's not a story that sells, because if you go and start talking about how, Larian, maybe they, the last couple weeks, they really put in the extra hours, like everybody's gonna be like, yeah, and they did a great job. Like there's no story, there's no drama, there's nothing to generate those clicks, which gets people and various different sites paid. So they could be crunching. And the only time that would actually work against them is that if the game comes out, it doesn't live up to people's expectations, people feel like it needed more and more time. And this is a Bethesda game, so there's going to be bugs. But, at the end of the day, like if it's outside of bugs, if it just doesn't work, then you'll see that story come up, how the team was just killing themselves and working themselves, and how could Microsoft allow that? Because that's going to generate clicks. That's going to be how the conversation ends up flowing. So that's the two minds that I have. I don't think they need to show up for that. It is strange because people say demo. Demo is the wrong word. It should be the correct word would be build, and not necessarily a vertical slice. But they could say, hey, yep, here's the build. But imagine if the build has a little bit of a choppiness to it. You're going to let people run with that narrative, and they're going to build up a whole, series of videos about, guys, look at the frame rate. It's running at 30 frames a second. Here it dips down to 20 or dips down, like to 15 like this. How could they do this? Is this the new Microsoft? I think it's just better for them, especially if the game is ready, just to sit back and be like, guys, we got a freaking great game. Like, this game is going to market itself. That's the hope that I have.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, Ginger. I mean, they did enough. They literally had 45 minutes showing the game off, and every minute that game looked better and better and better. And I do agree that it's a little bit strange that it's not going to be at Gamescom. But then again, it comes out in 2 weeks, so it won't take long for people to get hands on the game themselves. And just, as a little point of interest, I was watching YouTube last night and I got my first Starfield advertisement. So it was just a quick 15-second snippet. I don't think it showed the game particularly well, but I was very happy to see them doing some kind of marketing for Starfield. I think the game deserves it. I think Bethesda deserve it, and I think this game is going to be something truly special. But Holly, what do you think? Do you think that it's a problem that they're not allowing people to have hands-on at Gamescom?
No, not at all. There's very few developers in the world, and Bethesda, and most particularly Todd Howard at Bethesda, have such a great portfolio and a lot of goodwill built into the community that I think their active presence on something, especially this, considering all of the backstory we've heard for 2 or 3 years now, right, about how this has been like Todd's shining moment, and this is the thing he's want to develop and literally hasn't had the tools to be able to do that until now, right? Like all of that kind of stuff. Bethesda with Todd Howard, that alone sells games. Even I guarantee you there's a lot of people out there that if you just said we've got a new Todd Howard game coming out on Friday, people would buy it. If that's all they knew, right?
He's a great marketer. He is a great marketer. But yeah.
He is. And he's calm, he's cool, collected, he talks about things, he's smart and he's passionate about it, but he just has a presence, right? And like I said, and take away the fact that Microsoft bought them. If Microsoft hadn't bought them, it would still be the same thing. Everybody would be like, okay, how much do you want? Here's my wallet. Please give me your next game. So I think Microsoft knows that, but also, I don't think Microsoft always markets the best. They really don't show up in the same ways that Sony does for certain games that they have. But Microsoft relies on a lot of content creators, right? They rely on streamers. They rely on, podcasts like this, right? To talk about things and share things. And they send a lot of marketing tools out. They rely on Twitter. They rely on social media. And that's free to them, except for sending out, some media information, a controller here or there, those kinds of things. And giving people 2 weeks advance copies or something like that, and allowing those people to make videos about what it is. For me, it's just unfortunate that they're not doing more marketing, because I already know I've pre-ordered the game, and I'm going to play it September 1st. But for all of those people who aren't quite sure, right? Or don't follow gaming as hardcore as we all do that are here in the chat and talking, there's a lot of people who are going to be like, huh, what? And there's just a lot of untapped market for casual people who maybe would consider something like this. But I think Microsoft has the numbers worked out, and they know it's going to be okay, or they have another alternate plan. I think they're banking on a lot of that goodwill.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, look, the fact
whether you agree or not, that's what they do. Right?
Yes,
that's Xbox's strategy all the time.
And I don't think it's the right way to go, because PlayStation does this best. They're big games. They get plastered everywhere. You see them on buses. You see them on bus stops. You see them on the side of taxis. You see them on billboards. You see them everywhere, even over here in tiny little Western Australia. You see them. And I think that Xbox really needs to do that with their big titles, and they're not. And I understand, what you're saying, and a lot of these content creators, and yes, definitely. Todd Howard has a rock star presence. Like, I've been in the presence of the man, and he has a rock star presence. There's just a feel. I don't know how he does it, because he's a tiny little dude, like with a little quiet voice, and I don't know how he does. Maybe it's the jacket. Don't know. But he just has that persona. So yeah, he sells games. But I really think Xbox, just as a whole marketing, their marketing beast needs to ramp up and really start pushing these games. Umbra, do you think, though, that it doesn't matter for this type of a game, or do you think it's this game that you should be doing that with? And the Gamescom issue. I mean, a lot of people, and one thing that people don't understand as well is these guys who are touting this as an issue and touting this as a problem, they actually don't understand that they're doing some of that marketing for Xbox as well. So, that's also a bit of a side note. Do you think that it's a problem they're not at Gamescom, Umbra? Umbra is not there right now. And so, I think that, some things are good. And, hey, I'm going to sing some... Oh, sorry, he's back. My bad.
I know you wish your voice could be this smooth, but, hey, it is what it is. But no, it's not a thing at all. And Bethesda has never put out a demo at Gamescom like that, or any other thing. They'll show you a working world, and, they gave us 45 minutes of gameplay and showing us how the world is going to operate and how it looks. I'm more than content, and if they're going to actually be there at Gamescom to show us more. So what more do you want? And we talked about this yesterday. What could they realistically give you in a demo in such a gigantic, ambitious game that you're going to come away with a good, lasting impression. You'll probably spend that much time just creating your character before the demo ends. It's a waste of time, honestly. And the game is coming out soon. I expect the game to do well. As far as the marketing situation goes, it's like you just said, and others have said, our Hoove brothers have provided more than enough marketing for it by word of mouth alone, and their constant crying. And their constant crying and babbling on Twitter and everywhere else. The more I see them cry though and try to demonize this game, the more I am reminded though that there likely will be some type of Xbox tax on this game that we talked about before. So I am hesitant to see, at least, because my thoughts is the game will be an 88 to 92 review score. It might be more than that. I still believe it'll get Game of the Year. I hold true to that. Now, Larian is trying to come up with some strong competition here with Baldur's Gate, of course. But
dude, that they are freaking throwing cannons.
Absolutely. And of course, we got Zelda. I mean, we got some heavy hitters this year. I still believe, though, I believe in Todd Howard and team, and they have beat Zelda games before, twice, by the way. Just want to make that clear, because some people seem to have this thought that, it's Nintendo, that they win automatically. No, that's not how it works. So, again, I want to see how it's going to play out. But no, I think Bethesda does marketing much better than Microsoft, actually, proper, honestly. So I think, there you go again, by the way.
Yeah.
I think, though,
they couldn't get in last time, so now they got the tax squad coming.
Yeah, right. It's some type of motorcade out there. I don't know what's going on outside. Anyway,
that's actually me. I'm podcasting from the limo, so apologies.
Yeah, living that Richie Rich life.
Yeah, but my thing is that it's much ado about nothing, and the reason why we're even having this discussion is because a lot of toxic idiots out there are trying to mess up this game's release. They're trying their hardest because they know it's not on their platform. That's what it comes down to. If this game was on PlayStation, you would be hearing praises for it, just like we're praising it. Mm-hmm. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Microsoft bought Bethesda. All of a sudden, it's like Bethesda, like 5 minutes before the announcement, people are like, man, Bethesda games, I'm so excited. Microsoft bought Bethesda, trash game, trash company, blah. It's like
Fallout 76, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't mess with my game.
That's what they use. They use Fallout 76 to demonize Bethesda as a whole.
The only word that in my mind makes sense to describe somebody who thinks like that and lives like that is virgin, because they have more time than they need, than they could possibly have. As I got 6 kids. I got no time to be pissed off about video games on the internet. I just don't have that time. Is the game fun? I'm having fun. Is the game not fun? Welp, I'm gonna go play a game that is fun. I just don't have all this kind of time. So I maybe get 10 hours a week to game because my wife's a freaking rock star. The other side of it, though, like the only real world correlation is like I'm a devout Catholic, so I'm gonna talk about this. Is a religion. Like when I see people like in this blind faith defense force mindset on any side of any argument, and it exists in single game communities, is people take their team. Like it's fine to have a team. I'm like, I get that, right? Like sports are fun. We can have and root for our team. But when we're rooting for the failure of the absolute destruction, it's like that's where people take it too far, and gaming or their Sonys or their Xboxes or whatever becomes their religion. And that's where it's like you can't actually then have a fun discussion. You can't talk about like the pros and cons of both systems because everything just becomes a war. And it's like I just, and again, as a dad, I just don't have time for that. So I end up avoiding a lot of that, what I call nonsense, but some people get entertainment out of it, and I'm not going to judge them for it.
Well, look, listen, I'm going to tell you, I'm one of those guys that gets a shitload of entertainment about it, and I do not take Twitter seriously. You can't. Yeah, and occasionally I'll have I will be able to have like a proper good faith discussion. You do find there's normal people on there too, so you do find those people, but for the most part, there's a lot of bad faith arguments, and I wouldn't say it's a religion so much as it is a cult. It's cult-like mentality where your leader can do nothing wrong. There is nothing bad. They did nothing. It is ridiculousness.
Well, you can't speak out against it, right?
But the other one, then the other side is there's those guys who just hate the console wars so much they're like, oh, you're a fanboy, console wars stuff. It's like, so my answer to that is like your disdain for it is not going to change that it exists. So you've got sort of two options at that point.
Yeah. I have no power to do that, and I actually thank God.
So
I don't want that power.
So you can remove yourself from like you can just not engage, and that's what I would do. And then one guy who jumped in and said, "Oh, why do I see all this console war stuff on my feed?" Because you engage in it, right? But you can just not engage, or you can have fun with it, and that's what I love doing. I'll have a little bit of fun with it. Like, why not? It's not serious. Video games aren't serious. They're supposed to be entertaining, and the console wars of the '90s, the Sega versus Nintendo, they were fucking entertaining. Like there was a story about God, I can't remember his name.
Entertaining that I feel for today.
Yeah, when they launched the Dreamcast, God, what was the name? He was the head of Xbox too for a while. Can't think of his name now, but Peter Moore. Peter Moore, that's right. He replaced. So there was a golf game that PlayStation was having a golf day, and he went through and replaced all their golf balls and put Sega logos on them. And replaced all their golf bags and golf clubs, like so that when they turned up on the golf course that day, they had everything Sega. That stuff is hilarious. So there's fun to be had, but you got to keep it fun instead of getting serious about it and being a virgin.
I 100% agree. Like they used to make advertisements and put them on TV, taunting each other, like Sony does what Nintendo don't. It's like. Man, I would love for that because it that's the team rallying cry. As like you're right, because it's a cult. Like I use the word religion because I'm trying to use it more in a respectful way. But you're right, it's got that cult like blind mentality, and you can see that because if you ever you see anybody who's like in that, and then as they all of a sudden kind of realize what's going on and they start to step away, they get ostracized and attacked and cut off from their quote unquote community. So it's you're 100% right on that. But man, goodness gracious, the 90s and early 2000s bring that kind of that team silliness, kind of wink wink nudge nudge, back to back to gaming. I'm all for that.
The good fun, and I want to see Microsoft do that. Look, I do want to move on to the next topic. But Umbra, you were about to jump in. No,
I was just really just kind of agreeing with him on that. And again, just to say it, a lot of this, the FUD that we're seeing and everything and the negativity, it's just from mudslinging hooved brothers who are just trying to tear the game down because they know they're not getting it. Don't let them do it. Don't let them get to you guys. I don't waste time with these people. It's a waste of time and energy.
Tell the difference between somebody. You could tell the difference between somebody who's having having fun and who's just in it to either get clicks or be nasty.
Absolutely.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And the people who are doing that, don't give them any breath, right? If you ignore them, it's kind of the bit,
Yeah, but I mean,
don't give them any oxygen. Also, post positives about what you're excited for the game. Mm-hmm. They're posting their nonsense. You post the positives,
and post those also that you want to see more of. If you engage with the stuff and you're just constantly getting bad things in your feed, like my Twitter feed is a treat. I've really curated my Twitter algorithm, and I'm loving it. I'm using it more and more than I ever have this year alone because of that. So there is smashing that which you guys should totally do on this podcast if you're enjoying it. Those are real key aspects that the more things you engage with that are actually that you're enjoying, the better off that your social media can be. But I would encourage always to make sure that you get a collection of different voices, because the social media aspect and that kind of algorithmic engagement can easily put you into that echo chamber to where you never experience other great games. If you never get the chance to play Ghost of Tsushima, that's an incredible achievement in my mind, right? There are these things, and so it's important to kind of if nothing else, at least always have kind of a foot in to listen into other things so that you don't end up waking up one day and be like, oh, I didn't know that was going on.
Yeah, and
the problem is you're exactly right, Ginger, when you talk about how tribalistic humans are, and when it gets to a point where it's just ridiculous, mate, and you're actually doing yourself a disservice and missing out on games. I mean, there was no way I was missing out on Bloodborne last generation, so I bought a PS4, and I don't regret that decision.
Traitor!
Great games, Last of Us, Bloodborne, there was amazing games like Ghost of Tsushima, Spider-Man. There was amazing games on PlayStation last generation, and I think there will be this generation. So it becomes a little bit of a joke, mate. Just enjoy what you enjoy, and do a hard eat, and just stay the hell off Twitter.
Yeah,
JediKnightPeter shows his ugly head again.
JediKnightPeter. Yeah, don't stay off Twitter. It's way too much fun to do that. Like, if you got the time, mess around with it. But listen, we do want to move on to the next topic. But before I do, guys, please hit that like button. If you guys are here supporting us every week, we appreciate you. And if you are new here, hit the subscribe button, just like It's Buzzer and Cruise Missile 32 did, and you get that little cool Xbox achievement sound. And Shooter had dropped a super chat at the start of the show that I haven't got to yet, so I do want to read that out. Shooter2853, great friend of the show with the Australian $10 super chat, says, "Here, Riskit, buy yourself a spanner to fix your problems." He was talking about the beginning of the show. We were having tech issues. Spanner won't do it. Nothing will fix me, all my problems. We'll move on to the next topic, and the next topic is a bit of an interesting one, and I did put a trigger warning in the chat because I know some of you guys you may lean towards the Xbox Defense Force on the very occasional subject. We got to talk about this, though. This is a thing, and it's something that me and Pete were talking about earlier this week. Now, the minimum PC specs have dropped for Baldurs Gate 3. Now, this game looks like it's fantastic. And legendary drops, if you're in the chat, don't get triggered. But to me, I can't see this game. I have said earlier in the month, I can't see this game drawing that much power that it would be an issue with the Series S. However, I acknowledge that the Series S just in specific games and specific instances with specific features, it would struggle. It's got limited memory bandwidth. And Pete looked into this very, very deeply, and I will jump to Pete on this. But if you wanted to know what the minimum PC specs are, 64-bit with an Intel i5 or an AMD FX 8350. Memory is 8 gig. Graphics card, an NVIDIA GTX 970 or an RX 480 with 4 gigabytes of VRAM. And running on DirectX version 11. And an SSD is required for it. These are specs that the SSD matches up to, and exceeds in some circumstances. And I'm going to jump to Pete because Pete's a lot more of a full bottle on the specs inside the Series S now. Because did the man do some research? Yes, he did. But from what we can tell, that's around about where you'd be sitting with the Series S. However, we do acknowledge that that couch co-op is a thing for the PlayStation 5, Series X, and the Series S. And I guess the question is it a thing on PC? And I believe, Pete, it was 25% more performance you would need, 25% more memory, just sort of run that couch co-op. So, I mean, I guess
anywhere from 25% to 33%.
Yeah,
is what they were saying.
So I guess then the question is the Series S actually holding back the generation for Xbox? And listen, let's be honest, it certainly seems that way. We've heard it too many times now for it to just be a rumor. We've heard it from developers. Pete, based on the specs, based on the hardware, based on what Baldur's Gate 3 is trying to do, do you think the Series S is actually the problem?
Yeah, what happened with Larian Studios is they built the game for PC and then ported it over to Xbox. And because they're a AA studio, they kind of have to work in that way. And unfortunately, the Series S is causing a problem. So although the minimum specs for the PC is very similar to what the Series S has, so it's 8 gigabytes of RAM running at 224 gigabytes or 228 gigabytes a second, which is exactly what the Series S is doing. But you add onto that the fact that the PC doesn't need to run split screen co-op, and they need to have parity with the Series X on the Xbox side, which does have to have co-op, and that 25 to 33% gap in performance that it's going to cost them to add split screen on. Therein lies the problem. And I mean, other developers won't run into this because they'll specifically have teams that design for PC, Xbox, PlayStation. They won't necessarily need to port it, but Larian isn't one of those studios. They are a smaller studio, and look, for all intents and purposes, they've done a fantastic job with Baldur's Gate. It really is like pushing Game of the Year, and I didn't even have them in the conversation at the start of the year. So kudos to them. But I will defer to the developers at id Software, where they called this out pretty much immediately when they saw the specs for the Series S, that they said that memory is going to be a problem. I think the head of, or the technical developer for Infinity Ward said the same thing. They said that lowering the resolution to 1080p will help, but it won't solve all the issues. And Matt Booty also did say that they're never going to get rid of the S. There is always going to be a parity clause, and what it's going to take is developers are going to need to learn where the sharp edges are for the Series S, and then learn to smooth them over. This is going to take time. I mean, we will get Baldurs Gate 3. They will get it running on a Series S. It will have split screen, but it's just going to take time, guys. Like, don't forget that Xbox moved over their whole GDK this generation as well. So, they have, PC and Xbox running on the same things, and that is going to, so not only have they never worked on this before because everything's brand new, it's a brand new generation. They are a smaller studio. The Xbox technical engineers are there at the moment. They're helping Larion, and we will get there in the end. I don't think that it's going to, I don't think the Series S is holding back gaming. I think on this particular occasion, because it's a split-screen game, which is pretty rare, it's a massive RPG, it's made by a AA studio, that they're running into problems in this game. I don't foresee it being a problem, and holding back the generation in any way, shape, or form.
Well, you sound a little bit like an Xbot there. Absolutely. Look, Ginger, I am going to jump to you because I'm not too sure on your mind on the Series S. It certainly seems like the Series S has become, and you are a software developer for those of you in the chat who don't know. He did say earlier in the show. But look, to hold back gaming is a pretty big statement. So I don't think there's anything that can hold back that gaming. And Roshan, I did see your comment, and I understand what you're saying. But it does definitely make things a little bit more sticky and a little bit more difficult for developers, I would imagine. Have you had any experience, Ginger, for developing with the Series S? And do you think it's a mistake?
Yes, for the right. No. They made the right call. It is obviously the narrative that will continue to be kind of sold. But it's interesting because, and this is, I don't know if I'm going to lose people on this one. But console gaming, like, what do we mean by holding back, right? Because the Xbox Series S makes it more accessible, for especially from a price point and a budget perspective. Are we talking about the actual physical development of the games themselves? And if so, then the answer is that all console gaming is holding that back. Like, their console gaming is that and has been that entry point. And so then you could say, like, well, PC gaming is it, but nobody can have, not everybody has the ability to have that kind of funding. The solution really is going to be xCloud, GeForce Now, cloud streaming, because one of the things that I feel this generation, outside of even just the Series S and X discussion, I think that's more of a distraction from the real thing, is that, like, this generation did not bring the level of, like, jump that everybody was really hoping for. And you see that with Ratchet and Clank running on PC apparently just fine. I guess you don't need the PS5 SSD to run the game. Right.
By the way, Prime, just to interject, by the way, just to interject on that, by the way, like, what you said is true. And we didn't have the jump that we thought we would have. And that's probably why we will get that mid-gen refresh, I still argue.
Well, even with the mid-gen refresh, like, when you start to think about how, like, where gaming you came from is like big, like, it just felt like this big jump. And then this generation, it was all about speed, getting into your games faster. I think they delivered that, but games still are in their way video games, and they're still, and actually, like, I've heard people argue that game development's gotten cheaper, and it's like, I'm just not seeing the fruits of that. I know, like, I just don't see the fruits of that. People are like, I don't buy that argument. They're like, oh, the tools have improved. Yeah, but, like, if that's the case, like, these
games are more complex too.
They're way more complex, especially, like, way more complex, and there's all these things that can go wrong. So in terms of, like, development, right? Like, the clear thing is that they were struggling getting it to run on the Series S in split screen. Okay. That is reasonable. And that does tell me, that the processor on the Series S isn't as capable as the Series X. But we already knew that. The question is then, does that generally impact the gaming overall? And I don't think we're seeing that because we're still having better games than we did on the PS4 and the Xbox One systems. In fact, like they're doing like 4K and things like that. Like I don't see that. I do not subscribe to that as an engineer. I think that's a false narrative that is being pushed. The clear thing is that a split screen game, which requires twice the power of processor, like that tells you that in a split screen way, there's going to have to be more processing power. And not many games do that anymore. But that's where obviously the PS5 and the Series X do shine because they have that extra bandwidth. I'm proud, Larry.
Let me ask you guys as well as the chat something. What do you think then because it's 2023, I'm just going to be as honest as I can. I only know one person who said that they're going to play couch co-op. One. That's a buddy of mine. Yeah. Who plays couch co-op still to the point that parity, and I know it's a Microsoft thing, that's why they have to adhere to this.
Absolutely. Sappho asked that question, by the way, in a question. So if you guys do type question in front of your question, I just said question 6 times. And he said, who plays couch co-op, to your point. So if you guys do want to ask a question and you don't want to super chat, you can absolutely type question and I will read it out. Sorry, Umber, jump in.
No, you're good. I was just wanted to say
hardly anyone, Umber. Honestly, hardly
anybody, right? So my thing was like,
there on Baldurs Gate.
Yeah, so my question to you guys would be, do you think then that should just have been dropped from Microsoft end? Because they have this kind of rough edge parity thing that is just like non-negotiable, it seems to be the case. But do you think it should be kind of a case-by-case kind of basis when it comes to that type of stuff?
I think if they can't get it to work on the S, then they will drop it on the X as well, so they can have parity. That will cause an uproar, within the community. But if that's the only way to fix it, then I can see them going ahead in that direction. I just think that they need a little bit of time to work out the smooth edges. They will get this game to work, guys. They just need time.
Yeah, I don't think, with the given enough time, I think they'll be able to get that optimized just fine. But based off of how the build is now, Xbox is going to get a better game anyway out of it because there's going to be a little extra time. So if you're waiting to play Baldur's Gate 3 on Xbox, I've got great news for you. By the time it comes out, it's going to be even better than it is right now. And it's a freaking masterpiece. So
and you know what, Ginger, we've got Starfield in the meantime. PlayStation don't have that luxury, which is why they moved the date so close to when Starfield is coming out, because they needed something to fill back.
And they moved the PC version to August to avoid Starfield.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's absolutely true.
Let's just get some, and that's great. I appreciate that move. I can play Baldur's Gate. I can play Wayfinder here in a couple of weeks, and then I'm going to play Starfield. I might even take some time off work. Because the best news is it's not an online game, so I don't have to worry about some like crazy queues of trying to. Oh, I guess I'm not playing today. I'm glad I took the day off work. So yeah, it's going to be freaking incredible.
I mean that's a point that I made earlier today. Actually, I sort of posted that I'm actually kind of glad, and this is not just me being a dick, because I was being a little bit of dick just to wind people up, but I am actually genuinely glad that I don't have to deal with Baldur's Gate 3 as well, because I've got Starfield, I've got Atlas Fallen, I've got Lords of the Fallen, which I'm very likely to get. I still haven't finished Aliens Dark Descent, and I still haven't finished Remnant 2. I'm like, that's 5 games I've got in front of Starfield. I haven't even mentioned 5 games I've got in front of Starfield. And then if I had to deal with Baldur's Gate 3, like it just wouldn't get the time and attention that it deserves. So I'm actually glad, Pete, as much as I was being a dick just trying to wind up the PlayStation community, because that's what I do, but I also say they really do need something in that gap, because there is a massive gap for them, and their first party's not looking great at the moment, let's be honest, and they do need something to sort of fill the gap. So you're absolutely right. Sorry to cut you off there, Umbra.
You're good. So Legendary Drop says something in the chat. He says, come on, seriously, how about it's 2023? How can your console not do couch co-op? Why are we lowering the bar? I don't look at it that way. And again, you're not going to play couch co-op either, so it's kind of silly to even write that. that again, none of us going to play couch co-op. Most of us are not. 95% of us, I would say 98, are not going to play couch co-op. Let's be real here, but I can understand his point. So what I would say then would be the case is that they could patch that in later, release the game at the same time, and then patch that in later for the S.
It's on the
Umber, we're still waiting for
if
Infinite.
they have it on the box, it has to be.
Yeah,
You know,
I wouldn't do that, mate. I wouldn't do that. And you're right.
And my thing is why not do it? That way you get the game at the same time. Couch co-op, again, none of you all are going to be playing couch co-op. Let's get that clear. None of you. So if that is the case that's holding anything back, why not just patch it in later? So you can, I would rather have that than say, well, you're going to have to wait 4 or 5 months, 6 months later to get it, because it makes the game a de facto first party exclusive for PlayStation. Whether
so
you want to acknowledge that or not.
So when answered,
best believe that our Hoof brothers are going to take that, and they are using it already. In
they would use it if they did it on the X and they didn't do it on the S. But the fact is, and this is absolute facts, and you're pretty close because it said I've done a poll and it's only quite a few votes, but 83% of people are not currently. The poll hasn't finished. Aren't going to be playing couch co-op. So you're right. However, the Series S is in the wild. It, I think, almost doubles, if not a bit more than that, doubles the sales of the Series X. So, then you're removing something from your biggest consumer base. So that's a difficult thing to do.
Consumer base are not going to be playing couch co-op either.
Well, that's probably true, but it's just not a good look either from a marketing perspective and from a tech perspective.
Good look either way. So my thing is, what is the best way? What is the most effective way? If you guys think, then letting it all of us wait, because we have the Series X. So should we all have to be punished because the Series S can't do it? Does that sound better? Because I don't think it does. I think it puts them in a bit of a bind one way or another. I think the better solution would be do a case-by-case basis and say, hey, we can put that patch in for a co-op later on the Series S. I think that makes more sense than delaying it across.
Well, that makes sense to you because you have a Series X and you want that. So
absolutely. Yeah. I'm a selfish gamer. I don't care about anybody on the S. I'm going to be as honest as I can.
Yeah.
If you can't play couch co-op, I do not care. If you can't play it on the S, I personally do not care because I have an X. I paid for that. I paid $700 plus for my X because I got it through somebody else off, because it was hard to get at the time.
I think this for the next
I prefer to get exactly what I want when I want it. I don't want to wait for the game to come out later when I want it now. Now, the thing is here, I'm only saying that as a hypothetical because I do not care to play Baldur's Gate right now. I have way too much to play, way too much to get into. I'm going to be in Starfield for the rest of this year, going into next year. So I'm not saying it's like, man, I need Baldur's Gate. I don't care about it enough for that. But I'm just saying, I look at it like, what could that hold for the future of other releases? What if that affects a game we do care about? Let's say and it's a hypothetical. I mentioned this in the chat before, and it's not going to happen, but I'm just throwing it out there. Let's say it's a bigger third-party game. Let's say it's a Grand Theft Auto. What if that's delayed for us on the X2 because the S can't do something? Would you all be like, well, just delay it. It's all right. No, you're not going to say that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think this tells you, though, that this will be the only time that we see something like this from Xbox, because everything forward will be, here's our console, and then if you want to play these games, and you want to do it at a more consumer price friendly, Game Pass, xCloud, stream the game, on your Samsung TV or your whatever, like that in and of itself, I think will be solved very easily with the next generation of consoles as cloud gaming becomes more and more prevalent for everybody across the nation.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said before, Larian is a smaller studio, and so when you're getting bigger games, they're going to have the S in mind when they build out a game. I just don't foresee it being a problem into the future.
Yeah, look, I do see it. I do see it being a problem. 110%.
I do too.
Yeah.
And people keep saying this thing about couch co-op, legendary drops. You can say it until you blue in the face. You're not playing couch co-op.
Well, hold on.
Most of us are not playing couch co-op. It's just the reality of the situation. I'm not saying none. Hold on one second. Let me just finish this. Now, I'm not saying nobody plays it. Clearly, you have Eric Reed said he plays it. He said him and his wife. So some do. My buddy I mentioned earlier, he plays it. But that's the very minuscule combined out of the community. Most of us are playing online or by ourselves. That's just the truth and reality of it. That's all it is.
Absolutely.
Hey, Holly.
Blue, jump in.
Yeah. No, I don't play Baldur's Gate. I didn't get this one, but I've been watching this, and it seems as if, and I'm not defending the game per se, right? But it seems as if there's a very few finite games in our bubble or in our world that have couch co-op as a high priority. Halo, right? We still don't have couch co-op for Halo, right? Probably never will. And Baldur's Gate, as I'm told,
but
funny thing is, Holly, you can actually play Halo Infinite in couch co-op.
Can you now?
Yeah, it was.
They added it.
No,
Yeah, I think you get into the back door, can't
No.
you? Like, or was that just normal co-op?
I thought they gave up on it.
No, they didn't add it.
Yeah,
You can sort of break the game and do it. So there's a way to get around it. They did it on Digital Foundry, so you can do it, but it can do it. But I don't know if they did it on the
Doesn't
Xbox.
load up like that.
Yeah, they did it on the Xbox One as well, so it should be able to be done on the Series S too. But I do see it being as a problem. But Holly, absolutely finish what you were saying.
No, I was just gonna say Baldur's Gate, from what I've been seeing, is another one of those rare where it's been traditionally a huge couch co-op game, right? And I don't know, it leaves a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth that a developer is willing, like when they have an active version of the game, that they're willing to go ahead and release on other platforms and just leave one behind and be like, yay, we'll get to you, right? I don't care if they're the first, like the market leader or in third place. It's just a little ick, I guess. And I appreciate that it's probably a very difficult solution, but I don't know. I just kind of feel like I wish they'd done a little more effort to release concurrently.
Yeah, would you prefer them to wait on the release until couch co-op is there, or would you prefer them to release it now and add it in later?
For me personally, it doesn't affect me because I don't plan on getting it. However, I think it's kind of a Microsoft released the S, and they have this demand that, and it's fair, right? Because if you had only had $250 or $300 to buy a gaming console and you had to buy the S, you would feel like it wasn't fair to you that because you didn't have the financial capability to buy a slightly more expensive or a significantly more expensive box, then now you just can't do something, right? And I'm not just talking specifically about Baldur's Gate, because obviously this is a bigger conversation. But that would feel very unfair, and Xbox is sensitive to that, right? And I think bravo to them for trying to at least, keep that parity. To me, it's a good thing as far as trying to not alienate market or feel people or have people feel disenfranchised because they didn't have the money to buy something more expensive.
Yeah, look, I'll agree.
I think they've learned a big thing though from what's happened here, and they love their S. Obviously, they just came out with the black 1 terabyte version, but I think on the next gen, or I don't know, early gen, or whatever your opinion is on that, we're going to see a significantly different second SKU. We're going to see a second SKU, but I think it's going to be significantly different.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's going to just wind Pete up incredibly, and he's going to explode and hand his knees over. But I completely agree with you because so I have both. I have a Series X and I have a Series S, and my Series S is the one that I take to work. And I don't want to have to play Baldur's Gate when I'm home and then go to work and not be able to continue playing the game that I'm enjoying. And Umbra, I completely, if we were in the Xbox One generation, I might lean towards your sentiment. But for the most part, as I said earlier, we've got so much coming that at this point, it's a moot conversation. I don't know why we're having it on a podcast, Sam, but it's a moot conversation because we've got so much that we can play that Baldur's Gate not releasing on the Xbox really doesn't affect us as consumers. There's too much here for us to consume as it is. So
They should happily, the simple solution is to say you can buy the game now on your X without couch co-op and the S without couch co-op. You know what? We'll make it $5 cheaper or $10 cheaper, right? And we just won't develop it. Or they tell you wait and you can buy it for full price later.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's another option. Why don't we?
That's less development time for them.
Why can't they release the game without couch co-op on both the SKUs and develop in the background for the Series S until when it's ready? But I mean, again, it doesn't bother me greatly.
Head of Larian have said, we talk about feature parity. Split screen is a must for us, he said, and we don't want to release it without split screen, and we wouldn't want to do that. So it looks like to me that they're determined not to release it without split screen co-op. But they also said in the same breath that they managed to get Divinity Original Sin 2 running on the Switch. So that was Larian's last big RPG title. It runs on split screen on the Xbox One. I think eventually they'll get there, but they just need time.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that, guys, in the chat. I don't think the panel heard that, but someone tried to call me and that comes through. So apologies for that. I don't know who the hell it was calling me, but they're go and get it after the show. Look, we do need to move on to the next topic, and we are sort of pushing the 2-hour mark, which is sort of like where we like to sort of cut it off, which is crazy for a week where there hasn't really been much going on. But before I do move on, guys who are supported us and have supported us, please hit the like button. Mark from Legendary Drops, please don't hit the dislike button. And anyone who's just come in to join us, please subscribe.
No, please hit it. Nobody cares. Join us
live 8 p.m. every Friday. EST. And if you're in Australia, before Pete jumps in and says, you haven't done Australia. If you're in the Eastern States, we go live at 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We had a couple of super chats come in. I'll just read those out before I jump to the next topic. Gerald Mack with the $5 super chat, absolute champion. Gerald, he is a member of the Greybeards of Gaming, as I am as well. We haven't actually made up a group or anything, but we just in it because we have beards. Sorry to the rest of you who don't. Looking at you, Holly. Thank you, content creators, for what you do for our hobby. Gamers, we the Greybeards are the foundation. Hell yeah. We definitely are. Mike with the...
Happy birthday, Gerald Mack, as well, mate.
It's his birthday.
It was on last Wednesday, so happy belated birthday.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Today's my wife's birthday.
Oh, it's your wife's birthday today as well. Jesus, birthday's going on around.
Mine was last week, yeah. It's a bunch of Leos running around right now.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's my son's birthday tomorrow, so it's a huge birthday week. Loving it. Mike with the, I don't know what CA is, so I apologize. Let me know in the chat. With the CA $10, he said, Canadian $10
Canadian
super chat. He says, why is no one asking when did development of console versions start? This game has been in early access with 2 years with no hint of a console launch. Sure, let's blame the Series S for that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no denying that there's difficulties developing for what they're trying to do. There's difficulties there, guys. I'm not going to say that there's not and be like, the Series S is fine. It's not completely fine. They've probably, exactly like Holly said, they probably learnt a bit with this launch. Look, I sat down with Jason Ronald, who's the creator, who's the brain behind these boxes. And I wouldn't throw shade at him either. He's a very smart man, knows exactly what he's doing. But they do make mistakes and missteps, and this might have been a slight misstep. In hindsight, more memory would probably have been very, very helpful. So, yeah, just you've got to call it how it is. Shooter, you don't have a beard. Why are you lying? Highlander 001. I have and already know the answer. Will it have the adult features the PC has? Yeah, it will. Absolutely. And also, just to add, we were talking earlier in the week about whether PC would have couch co-op. It does. If you have a second controller, boom, you're in. Couch co-op on the PC. So, minimum specs as well. And minimum specs tend to meet, Pete, by the way, we were talking this, tend to meet the Series S. So it's a bit of an interesting one as to why. But we were talking about split RAM as well. So that's a bit of an interesting one as well. Highlander 001 with the $5 super chat. He said the only one with Baldur's Gate 3 on console is the only problem with Baldur's Gate 3 on console is censorship of the adult features. I'm tired of adults on console being treated like children. Well, I don't think it is censored, but I'll look into that. And if it is, that's
console.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah.
That definitely sucks. There should be an option there, and there's plenty of parental controls. Thanks to Andrew Norris and Argo for subscribing. You guys are absolutely champions. Join us live 8 p.m. Friday EST every week. On to the next topic, because I knew that would stir up the chat. You guys get upset about the Series S, but I love the damn box. I've got it with me. So look, just a little tiny one.
I'm buying one, replacing one of my Xbox One X's. You know, it's like, yeah, let me just upgrade to a Series because I don't have 4K TVs all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's just so transportable. It sort of worked for me. I do have a 4K TV to link to it at work, but it just made it easier. So look, Quakecon is coming, and Grey Monad did let us know earlier today that there wasn't going to be any big announcements, but I'm still hopeful. And Quakecon, there's an announcement from Bethesda. Quakecon is our favorite event of the year, and we can't wait to finally see our incredible Quakecon community in person and celebrate games and frag all weekend with thousands of friends. For our first year back, Quakecon 2023 is focusing on the fan favorite bring your own computer and the players that made Quakecon the best gaming gathering for more than 25 years. If you do want to go to the Quakecon and you are in Texas, it is at the Gaylord Texan Resort and Convention Center in Grapevine. I imagine that Gaylord would stick out on the map, so you shouldn't have any problems finding it. I'm pretty excited. I'm sort of hoping that that it comes with an announcement. I'm really hoping that we get another Quake. They have said that they're not going to drop any big announcements, but look, they've said that before. I think the a couple of directs we've heard that, and then they dropped Hi-Fi Rush. This could be something that they do. They could drop a small announcement. Ginger, are you a bit of a fan of id Software's games in the past? And what are you hoping to see at QuakeCon? Anything?
Well, this is, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm a big fan. I've played several id games before, not really ever to completion. They've done what they've done for the shooter, is absolutely to be impressive, but I tend QuakeCon is in Dallas. That's where I'm based here in Texas, and I've never been. I've always kind of wanted to go, but it isn't a studio that I've always just been a diehard fan of. Sorry.
But have you ever made it down to the Gaylord Theater at the resort there?
I know where the Gaylord Theater is, and I've that's all right in my neck of the woods, etc. Every time it comes up, I always oh man, I wish I could. I need to go. I want to go to that next year, and then it's like, yep, here we are in August, and here I am not going again.
Absolutely,
it's great if live back in person. I don't think it's been on for 3 years due to COVID and other things, and they were unsure if it was going to come back like an E3 situation. So I am happy, and it's one of those old time events where you bring your own computer event, which I love.
Yeah, absolutely. Blue. Have you ever been down to the Gaylord Convention Center in Grapevine there? Are you looking forward to QuakeCon? Are you hoping to see a new Quake? Do you think that's what id's got cooking? Blue's disappeared.
Texas. So,
I'm
here. Can you hear me? Yeah. No, I've never been to Texas. I always wanted to go, but never been there. I actually have a friend who I met at FanFest who lives down in Dallas as well. So I've played the first Quake and, enjoyed it enough. I love id Software, but for other reasons, right? And I'm pretty sure there's a Quake 2 remaster coming, right? And it seems like this is probably the location where they will announce that. Maybe I don't know that would be like a huge announcement, quote unquote, right? But
at the Gaylord Theater, yeah.
Yeah, but it will be good for the community, and QuakeCon with their LAN parties and all that stuff should be a really good time for them. It's nice to see that they are bringing those events back, because in-person stuff is kind of tenuous whether it's actually going to come back or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, look, I'm certainly hoping to see a Quake coming, but Umbra, I know that you're in Chicago and it's a bit of a distance. Do you think that you'll be able to make it down to the Gaylord Convention Center in Texas there and check out the QuakeCon? Are you hoping for a new Quake? Do you think we'll see Quake come from this QuakeCon in the Gaylord Theater?
I don't like the way you put that together. You say, do you think I'll see Quake come from this? Yeah, it's pause worthy. I'm just Just going to throw it out there, especially with the Gaylord thing you mentioned and all of that combined. It's just
I don't know what you mean.
Yeah. Listen, no, I am not going to make my way to the Gaylord Theater, and I don't think they're going to give us anything new there anyway. I think they already spoke on it. We talked about that yesterday. They're not going to announce any new things for Quake at the QuakeCon this year, or QuakeCon, whatever they call it this year.
So you don't think it's going to happen at the Gaylord Convention Center down there in Texas?
No, unfortunately, the Gaylord Theater will not be gaily celebrating a new Quake at this juncture. But I do believe that there is hope to be had, because it will happen eventually. They are giving, as you all saw, I'm sure, Quake 2 into Game Pass, among a few other things, Baldurs Gate 1 and 2. So they're setting up the table. They're setting the table for Quake to be rebooted, if you will, eventually. And I'm all for that. Me personally, as I said the other day, I've never been the biggest Quake fan. The style of play that it requires you to do in there is much in the vein of Call of Duty for me, where you have to, it's a twitch moving, twitch type shooter and experience where you have to really, really be moving. And I just don't, my old limbs are not ready for that anymore. I just can't do it. So it's not for me personally. So no, but I for those who are big fans of it, I do hope that it returns, and that they put out a really great experience for it. But yeah, this QuakeCon, they already said they're not having anything new shown there. So, yeah. But they are going to have, as Daniel told me, who has the dirtiest keyboard competition. So that sounds fun.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's probably a really good competition to have down there at the Gaylord Convention Center. And I think that if they look, this is probably the best place and time for them to announce something. It's been 3 years. I don't understand why we still don't have something they can bring to the Gaylord Theater and show everyone. That's at least the smallest announcement. And I think, this is the time and this is the place down there at the Gaylord Convention Center. But look, it's been an absolutely fantastic show. We do have to do our outros or end the poll. We ended up with, should Couch Co-op hold back the Series X? We got 21% with yes, and we've got 79% with no. So a resounding agreement with you, Infinite. People are sort of backing you up on that, but I would argue that we have a chat full of hardcore gamers. And if you are a hardcore gamer, look, and you're in Texas, head on down to the Gaylord Convention Center there in Grapevine and check out QuakeCon, because if I had a chance, I would definitely head down to the Gaylord Center and spend some time at the QuakeCon playing a bit of Doom. Ginger Prime, it's been an absolutely fantastic show. Thank you for coming on and giving us your takes. Really appreciate all of your time. Your reaction was absolutely amazing. We were talking earlier in the week. I don't think I've ever been that happy about anything. And to see that kind of passion in gaming is always a positive thing. So all the negative bullshit that came with it, those guys can go and get fucked. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. Please let the people know where they can find you, what you'll be up to, what your plans are for the future, and obviously promote your channels and what you get up to on those.
So, I guess it's interesting. It's always like, oh, plugs. Yeah. So I do a lot. I'm weird. So overall, my entire network is probably around 150,000 subscribers, but I don't have a single channel that has crossed over that 100,000 mark. So if you guys like what I do, I love talking about games. I love covering the games. I like breaking them down as a software engineer. Also, in a weird twist of fate, I'm a stand-up comedian as a part of a profession. It doesn't fully pay incredibly well right now, but it pays, which is weird. So I also post my stand-up, and the best place to start is Ginger Prime on YouTube. So I have my YouTube channel, Ginger Prime. That is where you can link to any of my breakout channels. I have found that within tribalism and within being a Final Fantasy fan and an Xbox fan, life can be hard for us content creators, because I tend, I guess, to upset people who only want to hear what they want to hear. I'm going to tell you the reality of things, and I've always tried to maintain integrity and honesty, and I've shown that I'm not I've shown that I'm absolutely willing to lose subscribers and followers by not buying into whatever the mainstream narrative is, and generally trying to approach it with what is really happening. But that costs me a lot, and in terms of it. So if you guys want to support that content, that mindset, check out Ginger Prime. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, you're going to get a whole, smorgasbord of stuff. I've actually just started posting videos on Twitter as an experiment. It seems to be going really well, and it really just kind of then affirms the fact that my channel gets reported all the time, guys. So if you go and you watch it and you like it, note that I post very frequently. And then if you want any focused channel, which I have a couple breakout channels which just stick with a game, those do really well. So I cover like Blue Protocol, New World. I'm thinking about doing PAX Day as a way of just kind of getting. One of the problems I have with the YouTubers side of it is that when there's not a lot of news to talk about, that's when you kind of see all the doomers, come out. And so there's a pattern here. And I like to be able to give you guys content without having to make it sensationalized. And I don't judge people who make sensationalized content, because if you're trying to make this your career, as soon as people forget about you, then it's very hard to build back up that momentum. So I have a weird strategy. We podcast over at Work to Game as well, which is a channel I run with a friend. And just check out Ginger Prime, start there. And if you want to see how far the rabbit hole goes, go for it. My comedy is also not safe for work. I am, I'm a family man. I'm generally safe for work on my gaming content. But if you step into the realm of the comedy, note that you are going to experience something that doesn't necessarily come across in my voice. I feel like I love it. I love doing the comedy stuff. I'm going to keep doing it. And if you aren't easily offended, you're going to love it. If you are easily offended, avoid me, please, because I don't want to ruin your day. And I will. Thank you so much for letting me plug all the random stuff that I do.
Absolutely. And if you do want to find any of those links for any of Ginger Prime's content, you can head down in the description and they are all linked below, as is all of our wonderful panel members and guests. Blue, thank you for coming back. Another fantastic week. Thanks for giving us your takes. Let people know where they can find you, what you'll be up to, plans for the week, and what you're going to be playing.
Thank you. Ginger, it was a pleasure to talk to you and be on here. Yeah. I saw all this stuff pop up on Twitter and I was like, oh no, please don't be mean to this guy. And without knowing, I absolutely love that you're letting it bounce off the cheek and having fun with it, because people are stupid, right?
It's just material. They're feeding me.
All they're doing is giving you, a better following and like you said, material. And I'm just curious, real fast, your comedy, is it on your gaming channel too, or do you only do like local clubs in Dallas?
Channel members. So I have because the comedy is dark, and because again, I get reported and suppressed, and that's a whole it's weird, but
now I'm really intrigued, of course.
Because of that, I put the uncensored versions for members. I have Ginger Pride Comedy, and I'll put up that, but I'm actually posting the shorts, which are completely uncensored. And then also I started just posting to YouTube. So you're going to see not YouTube, to Twitter. So, or X, or whatever the hell we want to call it now. So Del Monty, DELMONTY, and then the letter B. Over on Twitter is where you can find me. Ginger Prime is, obviously the name. And follow me there now, because that's actually one of the coolest things to see. That was like one of the first, just posting a video and it just went insane. And I was like, oh, this is great. That's I've never seen that kind of an engagement over on Twitter. And apparently Elon is wanting to start paying the content creators out there. So I'm going to start treating it like just like any other platform that I publish to. So yeah, let him bounce.
You never know what's going to be the moment, right? You never know. So,
well, me, I told people there were going to be tears. I was like, guys, I think it was 2 years ago. I was like, if they ever announce this for Xbox, there will be tears. I will cry. And boy, did I. And it was just like, oh my gosh. My wife hates it when I cry. So she was just like, oh, we're glad that she avoided that.
She has too many kids to worry about you crying too.
Why do you hate it when you cry?
Oh, man.
Because she's got 6 kids to worry about crying in her face.
No, I want to hear this from Prime. Prime, why does she was she like, you emasculating yourself? What's the problem? Why does she hate that?
So it's honestly, here's the theory. And she talks about this, right? She's like, it makes her, there's a security gland that goes off, in her world. And it's I totally get it, right? Because, and so there's an internet push that it's guys can be in touch with their feelings, yada, 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 etc.
Right.
But then I think secretly all the women go back and be like, "Don't, my man better not fucking cry." No. It's not
I strongly believe that. I
Not
strongly
an
believe. Ladies
look.
always telling you, Prime, oh, be more in touch with your emotions and feelings. And then as
Nah.
soon as you cry, I want to see another we need to break up. We need to have a talk.
Yeah.
Don't believe it.
And I'm not judging the ladies, right? Like, be picky, like you find out what's important to you. That's the thing about marriage.
Want a nice with a little bit of asshole, okay?
See, that's what they really want. They don't want you crying.
In my experience, it's the only experience
yeah.
that I have because I am an asshole. They just want a whole lot of asshole. So that's the experience that I have.
It's
but
somebody
Blue,
who's capable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Blue, we got to get everyone out. So like, just where we can find you. What be up to? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm on all the gaming things at that blue number and on Twitter. I'm sure you'll post it in there and come find me and, put some messages up and we'll chat and it'll be a good time. And I'm always online, not hiding offline like Pete and Umbra all the time.
Well, just hiding from you. Just hiding from you.
But I'm usually being harassed by Pete and
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. That's why I hide offline. So these guys never know when I'm on, because otherwise I just get completely harassed all the time. Umbra, another fantastic week, another fantastic show. You had a fantastic show this week. Let the people know where they can find that and what you'll be up to this week. Will you be coming back to gaming or are you shifting into some sort of other hobby?
Hell yes, definitely coming back. Atlas Fallen is coming out next week. I'm going to be heavy on that. I think I will play some Remnant 2 tonight and I'll probably do a little bit of solo just to get myself leveled up. I'm sure you all have surpassed me, way past me now, Pete. The show was great. I put my link in the chat. If you all have not subscribed to me, please do so. Thank you. I also put yours in the chat as well. Hey, great show. Thank you, Prime, for coming through, and of course, Holly, you're beloved here, despite the jokes we make. So thank you for coming through as well and being kicking it with us, and thank you all in the chat for holding us down and supporting us as you all do. We appreciate you guys, and of course to my host and co-host Pete and Risk. You're my brothers. Always appreciate you guys' takes and things like that, even though mine's is better typically. But yeah, I try to slide that in there. No, but yeah, good show, guys.
Emotional, damn it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I got you, didn't it, Prime? It surprised you, didn't it?
You got me.
Yeah. Yeah, we got him. We got us one. But yeah, no, great show, guys. Happy gaming to everybody. Go out there and enjoy it. Don't let any of our Hoove brothers bring you down.
JediKnightPete, another fantastic show, another fantastic. We let people know where they can find you, what you'll be up to, and how much you're going to be spending. You're going to be spending some time on Twitter this week, hopefully, defending the Xbox.
JediKnightPeter everywhere. Great show, everyone. Really nice to meet you, Ginger. Holly, I thought when you get you back for the third time, you'd actually be better. Didn't think you'd get worse. Damn.
Oh wow.
So,
No!
See, that little bit of asshole, right?
No! God, please, no!
No! Let's go play some Remnant. Okay, later, guys.
Absolutely. Guys in the chat, thank you guys for coming along, supporting us every week. Anyone who's new here and subscribed and I missed you, I apologize. You guys are absolutely amazing. Thanks for joining us every week. We'll see you next week, Friday, 8 p.m. EST, unless you're in Australia, at which time it's 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And you can find me down in the description, as with everyone else's links. And that's all, folks.